Fine. Can you present, or you prefer to wait a bit more? We cannot hear you. We can wait. You can do it later if you want. Okay. I would say we start with Carola, and then we try again. Yeah. So please, Carola, if you want to.
Yes, I will try to share my screen. Okay, can you see and hear me? Maybe say something because I can't see you now.
Yes, we see you and hear you.
Okay, great.
And yes, you are presenting now. Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yes. So the title of my project is different from how it was announced in the program. I'm still in phase 1 of my research and everything is still developing. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present here, and I'm looking forward to your questions and feedback.
Sorry,
and
could you put it in presentation mode, please?
I thought
Better.
I had, but it's, why isn't it?
Down the 4th symbol, maybe.
Yeah,
and if not, it's
it
okay.
doesn't. But I would really like to have this presentation mode. I don't know why it's not.
Yeah, there.
Is it bigger now?
Okay, not yet, but it's okay. We can see the slides. No problem.
But it's very annoying for me because there's a lot of pictures. So wait. Now? Is it working now?
No, no.
How did Joachim? How did you do it before? You had the same problem, no? Because
yes, I don't know. Let me see. You have to click the symbol right next to the. I think this 69% you have there below in the right corner below.
Yeah, next to the zoom.
Okay.
But the icon, the first icon, not the zoom. You have to the next icon next to the left of the number there.
There.
Yeah.
No, nothing happens. I think.
No.
Oh.
It should
still
start.
doesn't work?
No, we see the whole screen, but it's okay.
Hi, Carola. How are you? May I suggest something? You could also upload your presentation to Google Drive and then share from there, because as it's the same platform, it might be better. But still, I think we can all see your pictures anyway.
Can you try F5?
Or maybe like go back and try Comentan again.
In view.
Okay. Now it's.
You can try Control F5.
Mhm.
Control F5 might
Okay.
work.
But now there is no presentation. Hmm?
And now? Okay, can you see it
Yeah.
now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. So
No
thank
problem,
you
man.
again.
No problem.
Yeah. In the next 15 minutes, I'll first talk about how I came to be interested in the anthropology of environment-human relation, give an introduction to the sites and actors of my ethnographic research, and present my planned research design and methods. And I wanted to ask you, did you invite Jörg Niewöhner actually? Because I saw his name on one of the flyers that you sent.
Yes, we invited him, but
Oh, okay.
he hadn't react.
Okay, because on one
Before
of the flyers his name appeared, and then I.
Yeah, yes,
But
yeah.
on the
We
other it
want to
wasn't.
confirm his participation, but there was no response.
Okay, I see. Okay. Yeah. So the title is different also than the one that was announced in the project because it's still changing. So I will start off with a brief introduction of myself, which may be a bit unusual. But since I have not met most of you in person, I feel it's necessary to share some of my background that is relevant for how I came to this PhD topic. So after finishing my bachelor's degree in area studies at IAW in Berlin and studying for 1 year in Samarang in Indonesia, I felt that I wanted to learn more about perspective on my own culture and also learn more about the ethnographic method. So I decided to continue with a master's degree in European ethnology at Humboldt University. For my master thesis, I wrote about a collaborative forum theater project in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, with an LGBTQ plus community. I was interested here in intervening research methods and how ethnographic knowledge production can go beyond writing. And these interests continue to inform my research practice. The second relevant background story is since 2016, I have been involved in an agroforestry project in Raposa, a village located near Chapada Diamantina in Brazil. The agrofloresta was established on a piece of land that had formerly been a coffee plantation and a pasture for cows. During this time, I collected seeds from wild trees and worked in the greenhouse with saplings, prepared soil and planted mudas, young trees, and had many fights against leaf-cutting ants. At the same time, I was reading books and having conversations that made me think about the entangled relations between humans, environments, and other forms of life. When I was back in Berlin, I got involved with facilitating workshops in schools about urban gardening, circular economy, and sustainability. So some starting points of my research. In 2019, the Fridays for Future movement was omnipresent in the media. I think it is interesting that this became a new movement with the specific goal of fighting for the necessary measures to reduce CO2 emissions. Apparently, the established environmental movements did not serve Generation Z's needs to articulate their demands, while Fridays for Future is directing its demands toward the established political agents. While there is a general growing sense of awareness of the climate crisis, Generation Z seems to be affected by the present and future consequences of climate change in a specific, more immediate and emotional way than older generations. And maybe what was the most striking point for me was the observation that young environmentally conscious students often perceive humans as interacting in an exclusively negative and harmful way toward the environment. Many cannot even imagine what beneficial relations between their own species and others might look like. And this is relevant when thinking about imaginaries of Generation Z. How does this perception of humans shape the outlook young people have on possible futures? Or as Robin Kimmerer asks, how can we begin to move toward ecological and cultural sustainability if we cannot imagine what that path feels like? So this question already points toward two elements that seem important for my research. Firstly, the imaginaries of Generation Z. It relates to the literature on anticipation of the future by Arjun Appandurai, Shaila Yasanov, and many others. And the second element, the second element is care and responsibility, or as Donna Haraway would say, responsibility toward ecology, nature, and other species. Here are my current research questions or possible sub-questions. I'm still searching for the overarching questions. If you have any suggestions at the end of the presentation, I'd be glad to hear your ideas. So, how may or may not care and responsibility be extended to ecology, nature, and other species? How does Generation Z, facing the consequences of climate change, experience human, non-human relations in their everyday life? Where do interactions take place? How do these experiences shape their current political attitudes and their sense of responsibility toward non-human life? And what role do human non-human relations play when anticipating the future? To contribute to answering my questions, I will focus on members of the Generation Z, roughly defined as people born 1997 to 2010, who are growing up with the Fridays for Future and other climate movements present in the media. The youth I plan to work with in a multi-sited ethnography in Berlin and Raposa grow up in very different contexts, yet all have smartphones and internet access. I will talk more about these actors in a moment. I will engage in a multimodal anthropology, which Collins, Durrington, and Gill to describe as an anthropology that works across multiple media, but one that also engages in public anthropology and collaborative anthropology through a field of differentially linked media platforms. So collecting and generating data in different locations allows for, I'm quoting Schäfer and Niewöhner here, risking a thick comparison of the ethnographic material. With this comparison, I strive to make discoveries rather than insisting on consciously seeking comparative results. Here, not by seeking comparative results, but by acknowledging and considering relationally the falling short of comparison, I figure out the critical moments of my ethnographic material. So the field sites, the two main places where I will work. Raposa is located between the municipalities of Iramaya and Ibiquara. It's about 40 minutes by car from each. You can see here there's no major roads leading to this Casa de Cultura. It's in Raposa. The village was created through the influx of workers on the coffee plantation of the former fazenda in the village. Today, about 100 people live in Raposa. Most of them are directly involved in food production, coffee, manioc, beans, chicken. Only one family owns cows, selling meat and milk on the local market. The village suffers from frequent water shortages, and for some years now, a school bus has been taking students to school to Iramaya, and the former school building in the village is used as a cultural center for church services and tourist information. My engagement in the agroforestry project here provides me with personal contacts, allowing for an uncomplicated access for realizing the collaborative research project. The other site is Berlin, the district of Hellersdorf. It has a population of about 84,000. It's 40-minute subway ride to the central station of Alexanderplatz. The district was developed in the 1980s. It's a large housing estate in Plattenbauweise, concrete slab constructions. And last year, just between the two lockdowns due to the pandemic, my colleague Sabine Kuhn and I facilitated a school project with grade 6 kids at a Hellersdorfer school. With science fiction narratives, artistic and theatrical methods, forschendes Theater, we investigated on how humans can live in enmeshed caring relationships with animals and plants in the neighborhood. And a different class from this school will be involved in the first field work phase in February 2022. So for the first fieldwork phase, I plan to be in Raposa from January to beginning of March next year. And together with my colleagues Sabine Kuhn and Kalwan Minocite, we are currently developing the schedule for the collaborative workshops in Raposa and Hellersdorf. The idea is that the participants will work on some input we give. I will give some examples in the following slides and exchange short videos via TikTok in which they present each other their responses. At the end of the 6 weeks workshop phase, there will be a public presentation in the Cultural Center of Raposa, at the school, and in Hellersdorf and online. And this will establish the first contact between the two groups of research participants and introduce the topics of the Anthropocene and future scenarios. We plan to extend the collaboration between the two groups in a larger project than in 2023. Currently, Donna Haraway's ideas are very en vogue. They're taken up by many academics, artists, and cultural institutions. I don't know if you maybe have been to some exhibitions, or maybe it's because I'm interested, but I kind of find it everywhere now. There's somewhat a hype around the term Anthropocene, so there's lots of material and inspiration to think about these topics. I will put to practice a decidedly qualitative approach, including participant observation, open-ended and semi-structured interviews with actors and experts. According to the ethnographic theory empirics nexus, I will adapt my research design while collecting and generating data from the field. To advance the scope of possible outcomes of the research, I will include inventive methods and follow methods and concepts developed in artistic research practices. These practices open up spaces firstly for interaction with the field in order to generate friction and collect thick data. Secondly, for experiencing and imagining and discuss with the research participants. The theater becomes a space for speculative futures. I will explore how the participants reflect on internal and external ambivalences and their commitment to building a sustainable future, and what role non-humans play in these performances. Now, to give you a more concrete idea about what that means, I will present 2 examples of what I plan to do in Raposa in February. The one is about time capsules and the other about rock art.
And please, the last 5 minutes.
Yes. So my favorite quote, "You are talking with representatives of other galaxies about scientific and cultural collaborations." This is a caption from a time capsule buried in 1967 in Novosibirsk, Soviet Union. In a celebration marking 50 years since the revolution of 1917, the message for the future generations was preserved to be unearthed 2017 for the 100-year anniversary party of the revolution. After being introduced to examples of time capsules, including the seed bank in Norway, for example, the research participants in Hellersdorf and Raposa will both create own time capsules and deposit them for the future. We develop short stories around the messages and present them. Another workshop block will include an excursion to prehistoric rock paintings in the valley of Raposa. We collect what we know and find about them, share the information and images with the Hellersdorf school, and gather ideas about what these messages from the past may mean to us today. These are the first ideas for our interactions, and what directions the further collaborative research will take depends on the particular concerns of all the involved actors. So these are the main challenges I'm facing now, is identifying overarching research question and preparing the field work in Raposa. And future problems, maybe I will be very confused about everything. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments.
Yeah, thank you, Carola. Thank you very much. I think due to it's difficult to have a regular sequence of this panel, I think it's better to do my comments now. And if you have questions precisely to this presentation, I think it's better to do them now instead of doing at the end. So in my case, I like the topic. I think it's very original and interesting. A comparative study is always a plus in global studies. Moreover, if it includes multi-sited ethnography and what you call multimodal anthropology. So in this sense, everything wonderful. you are on the right path. But as you said, the project is still too open from my point of view. First, in relation to the research questions, I think they are still too general for doing a research, and they are not directly connected to the title of the project too. I mean, you combine two different things and two different levels of abstraction. And of course, they are very important, these 4 or 5 big questions. I think it's important you can keep those general research interests on care, responsibility, human and non-human relationships, but more as a meta-analysis, something that you gain more knowledge on that doing this research, but it's not directly what you want. You can answer with your material, with your empirical study and your fieldwork. In general, when we say research questions, should be more precise and closer to the research object. And in this sense, I would say theater and arts should be part of the research questions. Youth or generation Z, but youth in general, at least generation Z can be an example. Sensibilization of youth, I don't know, should be part of the research question too, and theater and arts, or arts in general. Secondly, on the role of theater, also in your explanation, you mention only at the end some examples related to theater, but I would say you should reflect on the role of theater in this sensibilization for caring, responsibility, human and non-human relationships in the Anthropocene. I would use examples and literature on that also in your theoretical framework. And of course, in the initiatives you want to analyze, maybe you can elaborate a bit more, but what I heard is more related to a seed bank or this excursion in Raposa, but what directly with theater, what has to do with theater more directly. If you can elaborate a bit more on that. And maybe you can analyze first also different initiatives in different parts of the world using theater and arts in sensibilizing around the challenges of the Anthropocene. For example, I mentioned you, I think I sent you this initiative done in Argentina in the Centro Cultural Kirchner. They are setting a consistent agenda on that, and I think that is an interesting case. Maybe you can find some inputs, and then we can go more in depth in the fieldwork. But to compare and to map, maybe to do some mapping of different initiatives using theater and arts for these challenges, and then you can go to these interesting cases, which I think they are very useful. Trying to connect more the theoretical reflection with the fieldwork, which should be more close together in general. But I think it's a good start, of course. Thank you.
Should I reply to it now or wait, or we collect first?
As you want, you can wait 2 or 3 questions more, or Timothy has a question, Elijah has a question. Yeah.
Hello, Carola. Very interesting topic. Thanks for your presentation. Just have a quick question out of curiosity about the requirement or the idea of the time capsule. Were the separate groups are supposed to create a piece of theater, and then if they do create that, how does that go in the time capsule, or is that supposed to go in the time capsule at all? But I think it goes back to sort of this theoretical concept meeting your field work. I think if it will be beneficial to you to sort of connect the response or connect the requirement that both groups are supposed to exhibit that is supposed to go in the time capsule. But I think it'd be really interesting to observe what they come up with. I don't know if you have sort of certain parameters of what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to create, or if you just leave it open to interpretation, or just up to however they want to express themselves. But I think you can learn a lot from about the theoretical question if you think about sort of what you want from the actual time capsule creation, or the theater creation.
Okay, maybe I start replying. I think a general thing maybe for both of you, I don't know, maybe I have to take this title of the theater also out, because I'm using this theater more once as it's like a big methods. There's a lot of research methods or methods you can use, groups of people that are connected with producing a theater play. And it's more about the process of we start to do research about a topic, and we use certain methods that are connected to this forschendes Theater, or like it's about a group process. I like this image of theater of the Anthropocene, or like I probably will not stick with this title, but it's like creating a space that is a stage where certain things can happen and people can experiment with things or ideas, and it's just a space for creating these scenarios. So that's why I use this word of theater, because this is where a lot of the methods come from that I want to use. And yes, it's like I didn't include it now in my presentation. There's a lot of examples where people also interested or concerned about the environment use theater. I don't know if you heard of the Bruno Latour's project. He did a theater performance in Berlin in 2017. This is one example, and I didn't include it in the presentation now, but there's many examples of how groups use theater to promote certain ideas or as a political movement also. But yes, of course, I have to reflect on the role that this that art has in social movements, or that the art would have in my own research also. And about the time capsules, because you ask about them, I think maybe it's a good example. This is a way of interacting with a group of people about a certain issue. Like I will talk to them about the Anthropocene. What is the Anthropocene? What are future scenarios? Like what were ideas people used to have about the future? Like how do we imagine our future now? And these the time capsules, I really see it quite literally, like collecting pictures or create stories with them and think about, okay, what would we want to put in a time capsule, and take pictures that we also send back and forth between Hellersdorf and Raposa, and print them and put them in a really physical capsule and bury it somewhere. But through the documentation of this and all the conversations around it, I will have, like, I will know like, do non-humans play a role? Like, what role do they take? What are the ideas about, how are they mentioned? And what are the relations that come up? And I don't know yet, like, young people or youth, they have, of course, many other interests than a caring relationship, maybe to plants. But I'm interested in what, how these issues appear, for example, in these time capsules. Like, how are non-humans portrayed? Like, what role do they play in these stories? Yeah. Is there another question? I wanted to say one more thing, but I don't know right now what it was.
Francisco has the last question, please.
Hey, Heather is there. Okay. Hello, Heather. It's more like a comment, Carola, about the research questions you presented. The first one of how many or may not care and responsibility be extended to ecology, nature, and other species make me think about the work of Eduardo Gudinas, Derecho de la Naturaleza. I don't know if you know about him, but it's like a good literature to get into the deep Latin American thinking on environmentalism, and it might help you with that question. Then I'll send you on WhatsApp if not. And then in the last question, when you ask what role do human non-human relations play when anticipating the future, today and yesterday I've been participating on the Earth System Governance Early Career Global Forum, and today I got there in one of the on the presentations a concept that they are working on that I found it very interesting, and I might put it inside my research because still with method and all that I'm very uncertain, but it's called a transformative imagination as a way of anticipatory governance. Very, very interesting. Like they are like, what I understood, because it was very brief, but a way of creating scenarios with imagination in this with this concept of transformative imagination. I found it very, very interesting. I just got the tip of the iceberg. So if you are interested, then I'll send you the link also.
Yes, would be great. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Carola. Now I understand better. No, the role of theater is more a metaphor at some level. No? Also, the question of performance may be also possible, no? To include in this problematization. No? Stage, scenario, performance, transformative imagination. That is a good tip, of course. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. But we have to move to another Eduardo Gudinas, from Uruguay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carola. Yeah. What do you think, Heather? Do you think you can do your presentation now, or we wait to the end? And if not, we show your video.
Would it be possible to show the YouTube video that I recorded? Because I think that I'm just I don't have the. I'm kind of standing in the corner of a train station. It would just be so helpful if I could. Would it be possible for you to play the link and then share your screen, maybe, Professor Pelfini?
You want to do? Should we do it now, or you want to wait?
Actually, now would be great. Now would be even better. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, I show your video, no? Your YouTube.
I prepared a
can
15-minute
see it.
presentation yesterday via YouTube, so that will be my presentation today, and then I'll be here for questions and answers. Thanks, guys, for
Wonderful.
your flexibility.
Moment. Can you hear it? No. Could you see the presentation and hear? No.
No, I can't hear the sounds yet.
I don't hear it. I just see it.
I tried again.
Of carbon offset programs and international climate governance regimes since the Paris Agreement. This research project investigates climate mitigation action plans and business lead advocacy. I will investigate how business elites influence international climate change mitigation norms. As participants in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Untitled business elites advocate for carbon offset programs. However, these programs are controversial and are often criticized as greenwashing, exploiting climate change vulnerabilities, and further financializing nature. Climate change requires an international climate governance response, and international environmental regimes, such as the Untitled, aim to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations to a level that will not interfere with the climatic system through a diplomatic process. The power exhibited by business elites to steer mitigation strategies through the institutionalization of carbon offsets challenges normative democratic operations in these spaces. This research project will investigate what businesses do to gain and maintain legitimization in the international environmental governance regimes. Political economy reinforces imperial power structures and hierarchies, and this research approaches the concept of carbon offsets as a method to decrease greenhouse gas emissions from a critical perspective. This scheme does not challenge the concepts of capitalism, the imperial modes of living, or the industrialization consumption habits that have been the prerequisite for the current ecological crisis. Rather, the status quo remains perpetuated. As carbon offset programs are increasingly celebrated as a solution to limit climate change, the protection of modern capitalism occupies a central position in emission reduction discourse and has led to the further financialization of nature. Seeing as the UNFCCC framework and policy goals drive climate change mitigation and adaptation action, this research is relevant to contemporary problem solving. Classical social science research into elites focuses dominantly on economic wealth of the top 0.1% of earners. This social science research will articulate the power dynamics of business elites when it comes to climate change mitigation policy and goals. This research will explore the advocacy, legitimacy, and mechanisms business elites use to persuade the international community and push their objectives. My objectives. My main general objective will focus on the direction of environmental governance and influence on global climate decision-making by elites. This research will investigate the mechanisms business elites employ to gain legitimacy and advocate for their objectives in international governance regimes. The case study for which these conclusions will be drawn from carbon offset markets used as business strategy, my specific goals will be to analyze what actors do concretely at a global level regarding the climate change topic. I will identify the ways in which business elites justify their position and goals as legitimate. I will determine the mechanisms and controls employed by business elites to maintain and increase their independence to avoid external regulation. I will establish if state actors and international organizations welcome the business elite to undertake an activist role, and I will investigate the concept of state substitution and analyze the current function of the state, legislature, and political system to determine if elites are replacing a preconceived level of the state. The state of the art. Industrialization has thrust the world into a new geographical era of the Anthropocene. Climate change is exacerbating the vulnerabilities of the whole planet. It will lead to a world that is deeply difficult to inhabit, and as humans have proven to be an agent of change in the geological makeup of the globe, interdependencies have also become clear. The environmental crisis also reveals a civilization crisis. Technology has accelerated at an unstoppable rate, paired with for continuous improvement determined economic lens. In the complex social systems of the Anthropocene and globalization, flexibility is key. Democracy is an important tool to be able to assess climate change-related risks and to achieve law and policy which supports climate mitigation policies. Climate change has prompted environmental social movements, especially over the last 3 decades. Citizens of the world are collectively demanding that global decision makers work to limit ecological catastrophe. The UNFCCC is the world's answer to transnational environmental governance. The organization was founded in 1992, just after the onset of contemporary globalization, and the framework is meant to strengthen states' capacity to manage climate change. The UNFCCC has successfully orchestrated several pledges from the international community aimed to mitigate climate change. The organization offers an avenue to support a global mindset of we, and this is especially crucial for marginalized groups as they advocate for their interests transnationally. For global climate policy, the UNFCCC must establish positive freedoms to tie experiences together. The collective action of environmentalist social movements require reciprocal recognition developed through concrete universality, the normative framework to establish transnational democracy, and connect social ontology with positive freedom. Global actors that influence the public sphere should have the absence of restraint and agency to make choices and realize transformational growth, which will be best achieved through democratization. Point 2, the public sphere is constantly evolving. Since 1989, civil society is no longer confined to the borders of the territorial state. It is possible for like-minded civil society groups to join in different parts of the world to address similar demands, not just to international governments, but to global institutions as well. It has become more complex, and strong political actors make public opinion more easily manipulable. The contemporary global public sphere is dominated by the state, market, and NGOs rather than a rational, critical, debating civil society. The UNFCCC offers an opportunity to meet social movement demands to limit greenhouse gas emissions. The public sphere connects with the discursive ambiance within the UNFCCC, especially the Conference of the Parties. Market-based solutions, however, play a central role in the UNFCCC-supported climate mitigation projects. Neoliberal economic preferences led to global decision makers to strengthen commitments to quote-unquote sustainable development. This research project will outline the ways in which the public sphere has evolved in the last 3 decades and the ways in which it can accommodate environmental governance through the democratic processes and by challenging the economic and hierarchical status quo. My third point of the state of the art is the financialization of nature. UNFCCC reports discuss the crisis of capitalistic societies such as biodiversity loss, climate change, rising inequality, and weakening democracy. Identifying the underlying causes of these challenges, capital overaccumulation requires a radical approach. However, much of the international community discusses the ways in which capitalistic tools are not contradictory to, but rather the key to socio-ecological transformation. The common political strategy supports the notion that economic growth remains desirable and competition will lead to win-win solutions. The mechanisms of capitalism are seen as prospective drivers of change. At the UNFCCC level, there seems to be a firm belief that economic and political institutions are capable and willing to drive forward a transformational process. When decision makers describe carbon offset markets or green capitalism as transformative, they are not challenging the concept of global capitalism. Rather, it perpetuates a business as usual mentality that echoes the sustainable development dialogues of the 1990s. Since the ecological crisis has gotten so much worse in the last 25 years due to unsustainable production practices and commodity consumption, this is an inappropriate approach. Even as the green economy forms new ecological contradictions, even pursuing these avenues of capitalistic sustainability are not embraced fully by the international community within the UNFCCC. The Anthropocene is a quasi-imperial domination of capitalism from the West onto the rest of the world. The industrial way of life has prompted the modern ecological crisis. The geological agent nature of the human species came about because of industrialization. Historical understandings must combine the capital and species history chronologies. In transnational environmental governance diplomacy, public goods should be prominently featured and elevated above sectional interests. At the UNFCCC, sectional interests are too prominent. The discussions are too generalized. The discussion should be more deliberative, characterized by transparency and an empowered public sphere leading to consequential decisions and measurable outcomes. My fourth section of the state of the art, specific business cases, I will develop throughout the course of my research. Once I have identified the specific business elites and carbon offset programs which I will be investigating. My research project will focus on two main concepts, environmental governance and business elites. Elites are defined as people who are at the top of the pyramid of social, economic, or political power. The concept of elites is a group of people who have corporate or political power whose goals overlap. They steer decision-making in a way that undermines democracy. Classically, elite research has specified that elites are people who occupy positions of financial and social wealth. Instead of dividing actors into elite, ruling class, and upper strata, my research project will define the sample of business elites as key decision makers with influence, resources, and power that is recognized by their community. In this case, that will be people who have successfully influenced the international environmental governance community to establish carbon offsets as a climate change mitigation norm since the signing of the Paris Agreement in 2015. The normative challenges of the Anthropocene have not been met through contemporary environmental governance. Within the UNFCCC, the market takes a center role through the lens of business groups, as well as development project and climate finance interest groups. Civil society does not make decisions, but rather influences decisions. Political efficacy demands of civil society should become laws, and while this does happen to some extent, it should be more seriously prioritized. Environmental policy should be overhauled to incorporate ideas from outside traditional environmental policy paradigms. Collaboration and institutional arrangements must centralize planetary justice and climate risk and offer practical solutions to global climate change. This study will offer insights into the socialization of business elites in the international climate governance sphere. The data collection will likely include a quantitative element as I record carbon offset industry growth as it relates to the interview subjects, but it will predominantly be qualitative. After interviewing business leaders and industry decision makers who participate in the UNFCCC COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland next week, I will better understand the goals, interests, and approach to engage political decision makers. By using a process tracing approach, the research will reveal the actions taken by business elites that influence international environmental governance decision makers and other international actors, such as investors. My research will predominantly be based on interviews that I conduct with the target elites, but I will also gather press releases from the companies themselves, social media accounts postings from the business elites, and I will draw conclusions on the influence of business elites on normative governmental organizations through documents published by the UNFCCC and other international environmental governance organizations. I will draw conclusions pertaining to what this means for the duty of the state, whether or not the group is striving to substitute the state, and how this impacts the role of democracy and international climate change mitigation treaties. The activities that will fulfill my objectives is identifying, contacting, and eventually speaking to and gathering data from elites. Starting next week, I will attend the UNFCCC Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, Scotland. This field research will be exploratory in nature. I plan to meet with business leaders in this space. From there, I will determine which contacts are leads and how to pursue learning about their backgrounds from a sociological point of view. Once I have the contacts, I need to put together a meaningful questionnaire to answer my objectives. That is, how they justify their positions and goals, what mechanisms they use to limit state oversight, their perception of how they take on an activist role, and their perspective of how their work contributes to climate justice. As I conduct my field research over the next 2 weeks, I planned that next year, in 2022, I will narrow my focus, deepen my contacts, and have a more defined questionnaire and understanding of business elites when I attend the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt next year. In 2023, I will have my first draft done, and I intend to attend the COP28, location undecided, in order to pin down my conclusion and future research, policy, and practice proposals. By 2024, I hope to have my final draft by mid-year. Thank you for listening to my proposal. I'm unfortunately on the train at the moment on the way to my field research at the COP26. I will be logging in to hear your comments. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you guys for your patience with that. I realized that maybe the presentation was a bit drier than I thought at the beginning. Yeah, thanks for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Heather, for the effort. We also have the comments by video by the colleague Adrián Beling. You already know him. He's very sharp and creative, but sometimes has some problems with time management. So he sent me 4 videos, with very long, but we only, I think we can show you 3, and the last one, I can sum up the main contents. And he recorded the videos at Frankfurt Airport yesterday in Spanish. So, okay, we have a bilingual session now. But I can send you afterwards to Heather, of course. So
perfect, thank you.
Fine. Six. taking too long. Try with the second one.
La propuesta de Heather plantea abordar el área temática de la gobernanza climática global y quiere hacerlo enfocando en dispositivos de los mercados.
Alejandro, du musst dein Mikro ausmachen.
De gases de invernadero, llamados mercados de carbono, y el rol de las élites empresariales en promover y lograr institucionalizar sostenidamente en el tiempo este tipo de soluciones, a pesar de su evidente falta de eficacia para abordar la problemática del cambio climático. Es una propuesta que da cuenta de un recorrido intelectual ambicioso. Yo lo llamaría un proceso de aprendizaje de alta intensidad, en la medida que incorpora una gran cantidad de elementos conceptual analíticos, teóricos, normativo críticos, que sin embargo no están del todo bien articulados entre sí. Manifiesta una cierta falta de estructura la propuesta, lo cual da cuenta, a mi entender, de que se trata de un proceso en estado de maduración. Me gustaría hacer algunos comentarios en relación a esta propuesta y me gustaría agrupar estos comentarios en 4 puntos principales. El primero es referir a la dimensión conceptual analítica y a la estructura del trabajo. El segundo se refiere a algunos supuestos implícitos que resultan problemáticos en la propuesta de Heather. El tercero se refiere a una cierta falta de claridad o incluso consistencia entre los objetivos de la investigación. Y el cuarto es una nota metodológica. Procederé entonces con el punto número 1. La forma la autonomía relativa de las élites respecto de los mecanismos de control y otros entramados de poder. Las perspectivas
se escucha, ¿no? Se escucha, ¿no?
podrían plantear, se conoce como
Yo ahora no escucho, ¿eh? Creo que si te muteas no se escucha, Alejandro.
Analizar conceptos clave, ¿no? Aquí aparecen conceptos muy fuertes, muy potentes, muy amplios, conceptos de autonomía, conceptos de democracia, de legitimidad, de eficacia, de poder, esfera pública, gobernanza, élites, postcapitalismo, etcétera, donde no queda claro cuáles de estos conceptos funcionan como marco o como disparadores de preguntas acerca de cuáles otros, ¿no? Por ejemplo, esto sería importante darle una estructura que ayudaría a ordenar la propuesta para quien la lee, ¿no? Para que se pueda entender cuál es el punto de partida, cuáles son elementos de apoyo y hacia dónde se dirige como objetivo esta investigación. Un segundo punto tiene que ver con que existen muchos elementos implícitos, muchos supuestos que resultan problemáticos. Uno que me gustaría mencionar a título ilustrativo aquí es el tema de la cualidad democrática de estas instituciones multilaterales de gobernanza climática, ¿verdad? Se parte del supuesto de que hay una especie de presunción democrática aquí, por lo que entendí de la propuesta de Heder, que no está justificado, ¿no? Este supuesto. Sin embargo, uno puede plantearse algunas preguntas muy rápidamente que dan cuenta de que el supuesto no está convalidado, ¿no? En este contexto. Por ejemplo, ¿quién decide sobre la composición de estos cuerpos de gobernanza a nivel multilateral? ¿En nombre de qué demos operan estos distintos actores, ¿no? En particular, ¿qué rol le cabría al empresariado dentro de este entorno, ¿no? Es decir, el actor central que le interesa a Heder analizar, que son las élites empresariales, a priori no tendrían cabida como representantes democráticos de ningún tipo de constituency, ¿no? Entonces, esta pregunta que se plantea de forma tangencial Heder acerca de el clivaje entre el poder, digamos, elitista o la injerencia desproporcionada de estas élites empresariales en estos esquemas de gobernanza versus una presunta cualidad democrática que se intenta preservar, es una pregunta que no está del todo bien definida aquí. En la propuesta de Heder
Okay, I think I can sum up the last video on the last 2 points. More related also to the connections between the objectives and the empirical proposal or the field work you want to do. Again, with this idea of everything is interesting, but we need more structure and hierarchies. You know, what do you want to do before, and what is the main argument, and what are the secondary ones? Regarding the methods, he has some doubts on the importance of interviews on the real access that you will have to this kind of people interviewing themselves. You know? Instead of using another methods, you know, or using interviews maybe as a complement or to confirm some ideas, instead of using interviews as the main source of data. Yeah, I think that was the main. Of course, Adrián expressed it longer and more elaborated, but I can send you the videos. But these are the main questions or the main comments, recognizing the importance and the relevance and the originality of the proposal, and the way it's clear that you are gaining more yeah, knowledge and analytical capacities along this way in the last year or in the last 2 years. Yeah. Thank you. Maybe you can have some comment on that, and we can have also another question.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, that maybe my interviews aren't going to produce the kind of data that I was hoping. But I have been thinking that what I've been pursuing the last couple of weeks is trying to set up interviews for work from a journalistic capacity with people who are in these carbon offset programs, and then I'm hoping that through that access point I'll be able to interview on them in some regards. As far as establishing more of a personal connection for the sociology aspect, let's see how it goes. But I think that it's a really fair point that maybe I'm going to have to lean more on documentations in other capacities. I would love to hear some advice that you might have for me as far as other data collection techniques besides interviews that might be more useful. What kind of things could you recommend me?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should start with more discourse analysis, but it's my way of doing research, using more interviews more as a complement than as the primary source of information. But probably Boike Rehbein has another opinion on the way you do interviews. Also, is different. But particularly for these people, yeah, it's a big question if we gain really access to that. You can do the first try next week, so and then we can have a better impression of the real possibilities to gain access to them. Yeah. Maybe the audience have some comment or question or suggestion.
Professor Rehbein, do you have any thoughts? I'd love to hear your general thoughts on it, even if you don't have something specific. I think I haven't presented my project to you, so I would just love to hear your idea.
This would take too much time. So in this context, I can say something else, because what was very nice is the way the presentations have been set up. So the first 3 presentations were more or less at the same stage. So all of them suffer from the same shortcomings. And now your presentation and Carola's is the same, but you're like 1 stage or 2 stages earlier than the previous presentations. The problems are similar, but the previous presentations already have a developed theoretical framework, and they have sort of an assessment of the field they are looking at. And these 2 things are lacking with both of your presentations as of now. However, even the previous presentations do not have a defined research question yet, associated with a hypothesis. This to me seems now crucial for all 3 of you, Elijah, Fabio, and Joaquin, that you now develop a point you want to make. What is the point of your thesis? And then you go to the field and you will sort of see that everything you have been telling us and writing is a fantasy and it's all wrong. And then you will sort of throw everything away and start anew, but on the basis of what you have been doing before. And then you can develop a really defined research question. This will happen to you, Heather and Carola, as well. But you're not even in the position of going into the field yet. So Heather, since you are already on your way to the field, The only advice I can give you is to collect as much as possible and as diverse material as possible. So don't focus on particular interviews. Don't even think of a technique, of an instrument or anything. Just, whatever you can get, take it, bring it home, and then we can take it from there. Apart from this, I have a lot of, say, detailed comments, but as I said, I will not talk about this here because it would take up too much time. So I really didn't want to say this because I wanted to wait for Francisco's presentation, because maybe it fits into this order, but maybe he is at a different stage yet again. So, but okay, now I already talked, so it's too late.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure now for Francisco. Yeah, if you want to start, because we are already 5 minutes from now.
Okay, no pressures. Heather, try to contact Leo DiCaprio. That would make things easier. For sure.
I'll see. I'll try.
Very good luck. You're our representative now. I'm to share. Okay, I think I should make some disclaimers. Okay, I will present what I got. Okay, and then you'll destroy it. You can see it there.
Yes, it's about to be shown. It's downloading the presentation.
Okie dokie.
Still downloading, dice. Yes. No. That's okay.
Sí, como que...
No, pero ahí está.
Okay.
Ahí lo vemos.
A ver si yo de acá la puedo pasar. No. Okay, I'll start. First of all, greetings and thanks to USAL, Humboldt University, and the CUA for this opportunity, the Centro Universitario Argentino Alemán. And I will make like I thought my presentation as like a journey on what I've been researching. I want to introduce my academic journey through a brief tour from what I have been studying the last years. So first, as a political scientist, I started researching for my thesis on Antarctic geopolitics. That's where it all began. Then, in that moment, I started studying the nation states and their traditional disputes over geographical spaces, geopolitics in the traditional way, within its own national interest. In this process, I discovered not only the geopolitical value of the wide continent due to the number of diversity of actors globally interested in her, but also I started to understand her great value in a natural, scientific, historical, and even cultural and identitarian means. At that time, by researching Argentina's, UK's, and Chile's Antarctica's policy, I started to observe the importance that their science gave to issues related to climate change. Since then, I expanded my understanding of this phenomenon from the quadrant of environmental issues, where I had it inside my mind map, to add it into the geopolitical arena. I began to research on climate change as a multiplier of global risks and then to become more conscious about the pathway that the current state of affairs on the world system is taking us into scenarios such as a positive feedback of the greenhouse effect, the hothouse Earth, and finally a potential sixth mass extinction. So in this brief presentation, I want to share with you like what I call the idea mother of what I want to research on my PhD on global studies. So it's like the spirit of what I want to study. And for that, I'll take some time to get into the where I position myself to start this journey. And I will start on the premise that humanity, which I consider, I make the world system and humanity, I think of them as mainly the same. Like humanity through the historical process creates the world system, okay? So I think humanity is immersed in a process of civilizational crisis and a potential collapse of this civilization that I think can be synthesized by two interdependent processes that mutually feedback. One on the side of the contemporary world system, that's evidence on the existing network of systemic global risks, and on the side of the Earth system, this is evidence on the global environmental change, today measured with the planetary boundaries framework. So I understand that our global situation, as I think all of us do, is on fire. And besides this isn't cool at all, I find it very exciting to see that we are now entering a new epoch. And I think about this like we are on a change of epochs and not merely an epoch of changes. And this is not just a game of words. I think that it's something important, something big that we are transitioning into. So that is why I decided to locate my research from the Anthropocene perspective, which I understand, as I understand it, it invites us, again, as humanity, to be collectively responsible for the effect of our lifestyle on nature. That is, to admit the effect of our world system on the Earth system. And from this point of what I think it's common sense, accept the invitation of this new epoch to rethink everything, from our cosmogonies, our belief about humanity, our traditions, religions, our way of living, our education and culture, our way of managing resources and exchanging them, economy, and obviously enough, the way in which we arrive to decisions in benefit of the collective, but without losing the individual aspects of being a human being. So, observing that the contemporary world system couldn't manage to achieve through its international climate governance a truly positive change of its own self-destructive modern rationality, besides of having collected 50 years of scientific work that warns us on the need to do something about the way we live and relate to the Earth systems and to ourselves, we are still walking, I even think that we are running to the same pathway, into breaking the tipping points of the planetary boundaries and getting ourselves and the whole planetary system into a hothouse Earth scenario that will put us on the podium of being the first species that generates a mass extinction in geohistory, as far as we know today. Now, as we speak and discuss these matters, and as Heather will be discussing in the COP, we face that the bridge of time to this real change on the collective pathway is on a frank countdown to the 2050s or 2030s, depending on the model of future scenarios we want to sit on. So acknowledging all of this is that it became self-evident, at least for me, but Dreisek says something similar, that we need, and Bierman too, that we need the need of an effective and just form of governance for the Earth system to auspiciously face these existential risks that this situation represents to us. So, with all of this said, I want to justify the area and the concepts that I will be working on, thinking on, and designing on the research I am embarking myself on. But still, why did I choose the polar regions besides of my historical connection with Antarctica, as I said before? I think that faced with these challenges and acknowledging this need of global governance, the poles represent, or I start from the premise that the poles represent on the side of the world system, they mirror the geopolitical map, and the geopolitical in a traditional way of thinking geopolitics, and are often cited as successful examples of international governance for peacefully managing traditional interstate tensions. That's especially with Antarctica, but the Arctic has also its things which I will have to study more on the Arctic, but Antarctica is famous for that. Then on the side of the planetary system, the poles represent, because of their natural conditions and characteristics, they represent an international science hub where Earth sciences consider them as one of the best possible laboratories on the planet to measure and prospect the global environmental change. And because of these two reasons, I think they are important to study the okay, that's why I think that the regional and environmental governance systems of both Arctic and Antarctic poles, analyzed in a comparative way under the discipline of global studies and within the theoretical framework that I found on the global governance Earth system project that I mentioned before in my commentary, I think all of this will help to understand, at least will help me. I hope it helps the discipline, this global studies discipline, to understand if their existing institutionalized mechanisms can enlighten. I'm talking about the mechanisms of the poles governance systems, can enlighten empirical or normative elements to improve the existing models of global governance. And then I'm thinking of the framework of this forum, this global forum I found, and I think all of you know. And that's the main focus I will be working on. Okay. So then, in the approach of the thesis, this is the part where I make water. I don't know if that like this is the more difficult part for me, and which I've been working on. I need to still go deep into the method, but like I still don't know. I know that I want to make like I want to make a map of the actors working in both poles, and a matrix of the discourses of the people representing these different actors. Okay, that's some ideas I've been putting down on the thesis work, but I won't present here. I would say that the thesis will be initially built on the contribution of a series of significant authors regarding the state of art on the global situation as a guide to understand the need for this Earth governance system. And the empirical research will be then guided by the theoretical parameters defined by these concepts I want to find. Then seeking to understand whether or not its essential dimensions and main attributes are present in the governance systems of the poles. The material on governance systems of the Arctic and Antarctica will be collected through the actors and organizations directly linked to at least one of the systems. but in this, I know that there's a lot of connection between the agencies that work in Antarctica and the Arctic. So that would be, I know that that's why I want to make the map of actors to see the interconnections between them. And this will include different types of materials, such as information and reports from those organizations, both in writing and audiovisual formats, government documents and reports from the states selected for the study, scientific papers published regarding the issue, and news from the international press. The main criteria for the selection of the actors, states and organizations to be analyzed, is that they should have an active participation within the polar governance systems, high levels of scientific academic activity, and manifest geopolitical interest in both poles. That's what I thought until now. And the source of the materials to be used for the Earth system, to be used are the Earth System Governance Forums that I mentioned. And for the polar governance systems, the material will be taken from both system secretariats and regular meetings, the State Polar National Institute or agencies, international scientific specialized organizations such as the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, SCAR, in which I participate in the area of social sciences, and I will have a first field active presentation of this same work next month. There's a they make a congress like from bianual, bianual, cada 2 años. Okay, anyway, they make a congress, the social science area of SCAR, and I will be presenting this research or beginning of research there next month. So then intergovernmental and interparliamentary organizations as the Convention of the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, and non-governmental organizations working actively in one or both poles, as for example the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists that works in both, or the Worldwide Fund for Nature as another example. So that's what I got from the approach. And that's all for me. Now I think I did it very fast, but thank you. Thank you. And waiting forward for the distraction.
Yeah, thank you, Francisco. We can hear the comments by Professor Rehbein or Ruth Mahler by night. I don't know.
Before commenting, I have one question, Francisco. Your research question as of now, would it concern the issue of peaceful cooperation and laboratory for science?
If the question will include it?
No, if this is your current focus.
Yes, okay. I would say so, yes.
Okay, good. That's fine then. So, as of now, what is missing entirely in your project is something that we could call theory. And this is no coincidence, because you were talking about we as a humankind are destroying the Earth. But this is a rather abstract conception of humankind. How much does, for example, the average African really contribute to the destruction of the Earth, for example? And what is the role of the average African in this governance, in global governance as such, but in environmental governance in particular, and in governing the poles in even more particularity? So an abstract idea of society at large is okay if you really want to focus only on the political processes in this international arena. But then you need a theory that sort of focuses on this also, and you need to exclude all other aspects of society. That is, you cannot address the world system. You know, you can address particular, say, organs of international organizations or so, but not the world system as such, because then you are moving into society, and then you have to address the heterogeneous nature of society, and you also have to identify who you are really talking about. And what I said to Heather earlier is true for you as well. The final slide is really unnecessary at this point. It's good that you yourself gave it some thought, but as of now, you don't really need any material or any method or so, because the precise question is so unclear at this point that we really don't know what kind of material and what methodology is helpful. So from my perspective, what you really need to do now is develop something like a theoretical framework. And in this framework, you really need to sort of figure out what is the issue you really want to study? What is your interest? And if the interest is, as you just indicated, to find out whether the managing of the poles is a good example for peaceful cooperation and for a scientific laboratory, then you should really choose theory only with regard to this issue and leave out the world system, leave out dynamics, inequalities, migrations, participation, and whatever, all these concepts, and focus on, if you like, geopolitics. But even geopolitics, I would say, is too large as a framework. Rather focus on theories of international organizations and international cooperation on this level, you know, not on the other levels. If you do this, you will lose a significant part of what you're interested in, I suppose, in the end. But you will get a very clear focus. And this is what you need to figure out now when dealing with theory. You need to figure out what is your real interest in the end. You know, what sort of excites you emotionally? What do you really want to find out? You now have 3 years you can devote to one topic. You know, it's a significant part of your life, and you will never get this chance again. So in this a period of your life, what do you really want to find out? And you need to sort of deal with this question by reading theory. This can be any theory about anything, you know, just start looking at stuff, and then you will get inspired and you will see, okay, this stuff is uninteresting for me, this is uninspiring, this is irrelevant to the topic, and so on. And you will slowly and surely see, from this perspective, I can see something that is really relevant to me and that I want to study. You already have an object of study, you know, that's good. You have sort of an issue you want to study, that's good too. But the rest is still up for negotiation, and don't try to cling on to anything. You know, just open your horizon entirely and just, you know, give yourself 2 months or 3 months of just reading around and finding out what the issue is for you. And then we can do the presentation again, you know, but with a very clear focus.
Thank you very much, Boike. Golden words for me. Yes, I have that tendency of getting abstract. But when I think of humanity, I think of the species. I know, I'm from the global south, so I know about the responsibilities on this global crisis. Like, I live it, no? But I think at the end we are all in the same ship, in the same Earth ship. But I know I have to get down this into a theoretical framework. So thank you for putting the focus on me.
There's this quote by Marx. He criticizes Hegel by saying, looking at society as one subject is looking at society wrongly. Anyway.
Yeah, I think they were very good last words. Instead, you have some precise question or comment. Yeah. Yeah, Fabio, we are finishing, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, fine. I think it's late enough in Germany. So, yeah, many thanks to be part of this panels. A good opportunity for more interaction among us. And of course, many thanks to Professor Rehbein and Tamar Soiler too, and Alejandro Wielakowski, Adrián Beling too for the comments. And yeah, we can organize that also more informally next year, apart from the IDICSO Jornadas del IDICSO-Tagung, or how do you say in English, workshop or so on. And yes, so see you soon, and thank you very much for the participation. Bye.
Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you to the presenters. These are all
Thank you.
excellent topics, really excellent topics. I'm very happy 6 people, doing very 6 important and interesting, exciting research projects. This is really nice. Thank you.
And of course, there are more, but we selected this because of they are more related to these 2 research lines. But we are also organizing in Rosario, in the Congress of Democracy and Political Science in 2 weeks. There are also some presentations from other members of the PhD. Fine. Bye-bye. See you.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao. Goodbye. Tschüss.